Cast Iron Cooking with Johnny.
Hello and welcome to Cast Iron Cooking with Johnny. I am Johnny. These are my cast irons. Today we are tackling the most simple, the most basic, the chicken breast. Now people talk about going on diets and eating chicken breasts over and over again and how bored they are of them, and they don't have to be bored. This chicken breast recipe is super delicious and really easy to do. Now we're going to use very few ingredients to make this chicken breast. I like to keep it really simple. We're going to use some fresh thyme, some fresh rosemary, and some olive oil, salt and pepper, and that is it. Now preparing this only takes a few minutes. You heat up your stove, you get your pan hot inside your stove, and then you grill up one side of the breast, and then you flip it, and you toss it back in your oven. It's that simple. You don't need much experience, you only need a few ingredients, and it'll turn out perfectly every time. Now if you want to put different spices on this or different herbs, feel free. This recipe is just going to show you how to take a regular chicken breast you have laying around and turn it into something delicious. Now this chicken breast here is a nice organic chicken breast from the local butcher, but this recipe will work with any chicken breast you use. If it's a little bit smaller of a chicken breast, you just reduce the time you bake it off at the end. So we'll just get started here, chopping up our herbs and putting it on the breast. Now before we get into this, just like always, we're going to learn a little history on when the chicken breast was first discovered. During the Dark Ages, a Phulgarian prince named Beasley was known for being a very picky eater. Having grown tired of the undesirable meats of the time, he called to his head chef and ordered him to prepare the royal family's pet chicken. The overwhelming success of this culinary development led to the declaration of a Phulgarian national holiday on June 32nd. Phulgaria is definitely not a country. Let's get back to the show. All right, so now we're going to dice up our herbs. And just dice them pretty coarsely. And that should be enough to cover our chicken breast. We're going to take them now and put it in a bowl. And then into the bowl, we're just going to pour some olive oil. Now I have this chicken breast here. It's already been trimmed to fat. It's also been sitting out for about 45 minutes in order to temper. That's really important too when you're especially if you're gonna bake something. You want the internal temperature of the meat not to be super, super cold. Now before I add my herb and oil, I'm just gonna put a pretty liberal amount of salt and pepper on there. All right, there we go. Now I'm gonna take some of this oil and herb, and I'm just going to rub it into the chicken. All right, now both sides of the breast are covered in herbs and salt and pepper and olive oil. We're going to end up putting this chicken breast in the skillet first, searing it on one side, then flipping it, then throwing it into the oven to bake it off. All right, now that our chicken breast is all dressed, we're gonna set our oven to 375 degrees to preheat. We're gonna throw our pan in there as well, and we're gonna let the pan heat up with the oven. Now we're gonna have our burner on to a medium-high heat. That's gonna give us a nice sear on the outside without drying out the breast. All right, now that our pan is hot, we're gonna put our chicken breast round side, top side down. That way when you flip it to put it in the oven, it's gonna have that nice curve to the top. The chicken breast is going to be in the pan for a pretty brief amount of time. Let's say 2 to 5 minutes. If you want to leave it in for longer and char up the outside a little bit more, go right ahead. You'll just reduce the cooking time of baking it at the end. I'd also be careful not to leave it in too long or go at a lower heat because you're going to dry out the chicken. You want to retain that moist chicken in the beginning, and then when you throw it in to bake off, it's going to be really, really juicy. Now don't move the breast once it's in there. Don't slide it around or try to move it from side to side. It will naturally lift from the pan when it's ready to be flipped. All right, our chicken breast is ready to flip. Now sometimes if I have a few extra little sprigs of rosemary or thyme, I'll throw them on top of the chicken breast before I put it in the oven. All right, looks like our chicken breast is ready to be thrown in the oven, so let's get it in there. All right, the timer's set for 20 minutes, so we just gotta entertain ourselves. Now you want to make sure your chicken breast is up to temperature. That's very important. 20 minutes is not going to guarantee that your chicken's all the way done, so always check it with a meat thermometer. Get it up to 165. Be careful not to get it up to 180, 190 though, because that's a dry breast area. You don't want to be dealing with that. So make sure it's at 165 and pull it out. Let it sit on your cutting board and it's going to be just right. All right, our timer just went off. Let's get this chicken out of the oven. And now that you got the chicken breast on the cutting board, don't touch it. Let it sit there 3 to 5 minutes, let it rest, let the juices kind of settle in there. It's going to continue to cook. Now I know that if you're trying to cook chicken breast, it can come out a little dry, but this recipe, just like this, you're always going to have this moist, delicious chicken breast every single time. As you can see, this breast turned out great. It's got all these crispy bits on the outside. The herbs are crisped up really nicely, and it's going to be super, super juicy in the middle. This recipe is very, very simple. You can do 2, 3 chicken breasts, whatever you can fit in your skillet. The recipe is going to be the same. Just make sure that they're not touching. So there you have it, an extremely easy chicken breast recipe. Very few ingredients, cooked up in a skillet, finished off in the oven, and right to your table. I hope you tried this chicken breast recipe. I hope you learned something. Go check out my other videos for some other sides you could serve with this chicken breast, and I'll talk to you guys later.